Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about us at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about anything you'd like to ask around virtual production or media production. The second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. Today, we're going to have David Schlitter. He is one of the founders of MakerPipe, and he will be talking to us about how they did this, why they did this, how it works, and answer your questions. So that's coming up in the second hour today. On Saturday, of course, it's a long day, education from 8 to 10. And, it's not broadcasted to YouTube, so you need to meet on the Zoom link, which you'll get from going to officehours.global. Then we have the long day, of course. We're going back to Belfast to the Accidental Theatre, where we will be doing a remote takeover and doing a little concert. And you can see the whole behind the scenes with all the comms and really hear everything. And again, that link is going out in Zoom. And then Sunday we're cooking pierogies with Shannon Cooper. So cooking, Damyanti Gajar is taking time off. Ken Jordan's doing his own thing. And Shannon's going to show us how to make her world famous pierogies. So that'll be at Sunday at 9 a.m. So come in, you can just join and watch us cook it. Usually 9 to 9:30, we're kind of building up our kits still, but usually we start by 9:30. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Dennis, what do we have?
Our first question today comes from George Butters in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and he asks, what are the minimum hardware and software requirements for participating in Office Hours 2.0?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Thanks for asking the question, George. I think we want a relatively good quality video signal and audio signal, and how you attain that is just look around the panelist here. You're going to see everything from a Brio all the way up to higher-end Blackmagic cameras, but a Brio would be a minimum camera requirement. Microphone-wise, an HLS PR, what is it? PR40, I guess, what everybody's using. You can see them on the screen. And for lighting, it really depends. It's more, add to taste. But generally, a little bit better than what most people are used to seeing on a Zoom call. This is a pretty sophisticated group, but we don't want to go overboard.
Yeah, it's a great answer. I think that when people ask me what is the minimum, I usually say they need a Brio and an MV7. Like that is like, if you just get those two things kind of solve themselves. Now some of us are using some Sky. That's exactly what Sky's doing. So if you want to make it simple, of course, you can get a great background or whatever. But I think that's all. Those are the two big things. Of course, as Mitchell said, lighting is something that you can kind of choose. I use a lot of NAND lighting. But there's lots of many versions. Newer makes a variety of lights that are great. Aperture also makes some great lights and a great window if you're in the right place at the right time. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I'm just wondering the way that George has phrased the question, if he's wondering hardware and software being as far as getting on Zoom, a computer that can run Zoom, and as far as what contribution methods we'll be using for 2.0.
Yeah, for now, for 2.0, I think that we have to think about 2.0 versus 3.0, because as soon as we finish 2.0, I've already got 3.0 in my head. But the contribution for 2.0 will still be Zoom, and still be but 3.0 is probably another year away. But in 2.0, yeah, Zoom will be still the contribution, and a relatively new, almost any computer in the last 2 years should work to make that work. Go ahead, next question.
The next question is from Tim Home in San Lorenzo, California, and he asks, what type of formatting do you use for a T5 drive in order to record with an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I would format it as exFAT because that is cross-platform, so you can then take that drive to a Mac or a PC. If you use the Mac proprietary format, you might have trouble if you try and read it on a PC.
And does it handle anything that you put in there? Because I know that HyperDecks, I believe, still are. I think that they just want to do Mac journaled, or do they do exFAT as well?
They all do exFAT, I believe.
They do, or they don't. They don't, right?
I don't know. Maybe
my understanding is they do both in a HyperDeck.
Okay, good. It might just be my my myopia. Next question.
Tim Home also has the next question, and he asks, is there a reliable inline audio metering solution that is free on Mac or PC?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, the one we're using is the Waves meter, but you have to pay for that. But if you're looking for free, it's been around a while. the Orban loudness meter. I've been using it for a long time. A lot of the ballistics are developed by CBS Labs, so it's got an industry accepted whatever the balance of the meters, the ballistics. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
Ulean is the other one we use.
Yeah.
Youlean, and there's a free version that's quite usable for Zoom meetings.
I'm really glad you said that, because I was like, I know the other one. I could see it. I could picture the screen, but I couldn't remember the name. And so I was just like, someone's got to raise their hand. Next question.
Guy Cochran from Seattle, Washington has the next question. If you had a dangling cable in the shot, like the one behind Alex, how would you dress it?
Guy.
Throwing the ball to myself, I guess. So I'm using.
Fortunately, it was a long
things.
pass.
Yeah, I'm using one of these, which is pretty cool. It basically wraps around. They're by Triad Orbit, so you can see here. It's just pretty after it's properly dressed. I'd probably recommend one of these things.
I kind of feel like we should get Triad Orbit on. They make such great things. They just, it's like, oh, we thought about it 4 times, Triad, and we thought about it 3 times before we actually made it. It's just really good stuff. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, and the question of dressing it is, again, as you're showing up in a thing, what is it that you want people to see? And so to Guy's distraction, apparently he would like it a little tidier on your set there, Alex. But
I'm trying to figure out how I use some pieces to make it look messier.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. You either have to go really tidy or just make 1,000 cables, and so then it's a look.
I keep on when Benwick complains about it, I keep on wanting to just have hang a bunch of cables down behind me.
I have ideas.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Sorry, I wasn't watching where we were. If you have a 3D printer, I designed these little cable clips for 10 millimeter square, like mic arms, and they also go on around at 10 millimeter, like magic arms and so on. It's got a little round hole for the cable there, and then a square part that just snaps over, and it holds the cable against whatever it is you're going to have running along.
Is there somewhere that people can find that model?
I did post that in years ago. I mean, months ago.
It's in Discord. I think there's a free channel in Discord.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm hoping to do as we go into the new year is build a kind of a repository of stuff. I shoot a lot of video that I use for tests, and I keep on meaning to put that up on somewhere. So I think we're going to find out where we can put that and start putting up files that that are useful to people. Next question.
Tim Home from San Lorenzo, California has the next question. What are some unusual but awesome programs that you are using to take advantage of the new M1 Max?
Go ahead, Noah.
I guess it fits in unusual, but there's a program called Crossover, and it allows you to run some Windows programs on the Mac or M1. I'm specifically using it for gaming to decompress a little bit after a long 2 months worth of work. But I haven't seen if you could possibly run some Windows programs with Crossover.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
The M1 has done some wonderful things. I have Adobe Media Encoder on my other computer, which is not Silicon Apple product. But on the M1, it's blazingly fast. It's like 6-7 times faster on an M1. This comparing it to a big old Power Mac that I have that's an Intel-based machine.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm digging on no Bobney scope. I picked it up on the Black Friday. I've been wanting to get it for a year now and finally broke down and got it. So this is no Bobney scope. I wish I could have got the more expensive one that had NDI out, but so far this thing's been rock solid on the M1.
It's a great scope system. I will say that I was using it yesterday, and we had it in a Zoom, so like everybody watching can just sit there and look, just see all the scopes and all the meters and everything else that we were doing. And so I got pinged. They were like, "What are you doing there? Like, what is that? What is that thing?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Omniscope." And so, what I love about it, it's so flexible, and you can get a clean interface. Like you can just go full screen, and it's just perfectly clean. It's really a great app. Next question.
The next question is from Tlaloc Miguel Lopez Waterman in Astoria, New York. What was your most innovative McGyvered solution that saved the show?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, it's a bit complex, but I'll try and explain it. I was doing a McDonald's commercial that involved motion control, so there was a big motion control arm. And the problem is the video from the motion control had so much noise from the servo motors in the these are the analog video days, that you couldn't synchronize it to playback. So to line up the previous shot with the next shot in a special effects unit, there was no switcher that could take both signals because it was so noisy. So I went and got a teleprompter that I happened to have. I was doing sound on it, but anyway, so I put one monitor below, and instead of where the camera goes, I put another monitor and took the live feed from the motion control rig and the playback feed from Video Assist and superimposed them using the teleprompter glass so that they could line the shots up and we could continue to shoot the commercial.
Go ahead, Sky.
Starbucks coffee and gummy bears. It's a magical stockpile of things I'm going to be giving to Mickey, because he has saved me so often in shows. And so making friends that have come in, and I continue to put myself in harm's way, and Mickey and JJ and Jim and just so many, and Guy Cochran and Mark and people continue to be the people that save the show.
Go ahead, Dennis.
So I'm trying something today. I've got some garden wire and have fashioned a harness to hold my earbuds in. So I'm wearing that now. I don't know how much you can see that, but the idea is to keep the cables out of the way and keep the earbuds in my ears.
And go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's funny when you tell stories about yourself that you always come off being the hero. So we were doing a live show at the Grand Opera House here in Wilmington, and the program director that was doing the directing of the show realized it had the wrong version of the show audio soundtrack running. And it just so happened that I was the guy that read the soundtrack. So we had the guy on the board punch a live mic in and out, and I just read the line, and it was flawless. So I felt like the hero that day.
That's great. I think that the one that I think I like the most, I was trying to find all the pictures of it. We had the opportunity to do something a couple times. And so what we had was a series of YouTubers that would need to ask, you have 3 YouTubers that are going to ask a head of state or somebody, like a bunch of important person, a bunch of questions. And the first time we did it, we had these little boards. We actually did it in the White House in the East Room, and we built these little boards where the president would walk from one to the next and meet each YouTuber. The next year, we built it so that we literally put all of the lights onto the back, behind the back end, and the person would come in, and the new YouTuber would be there, and we'd roll a new background behind them and run an interstitial, which felt kind of cool. I felt like the one that we kind of reached our pinnacle in this, I guess, McGyvering was this. So what we did here is this was something we did actually. This is the EU studio in Brussels, and what we did there was, if you look at this. If you look at this is a giant monitor, so we could change it so that the different people were coming from different parts of Europe. So we could change this view, and it would look like kind of like a window. And then these were put on rollers, and we built them. And it was really we had to be very careful about how big these were and everything else, so that we could spin this. So basically, there were 3 sets. You can see the thing here, 3 sets, and you could just rotate them. And so you'd rotate it, and each one of them gave you more of a feel of that creator. And then we changed and basically we walked away from this and then walked towards it, between each one, and boom, it was something different. And it was kind of a fun little. It was fun that we got to do it a couple times, because we kept on thinking, the first one was, when I look back at the first one, which we were so proud of, it looked pretty janky compared to what we kind of ended up with a little bit of practice. Anyway, that's my version of it. Next question.
The next question is from Danny Law in Malaysia. Elgato Cam Link 4K seems only to list Blackmagic Design PCC 4K as a compatible camera from BMD. Wouldn't others like the 6K Pro be compatible also, as its HDMI output it only gives 1080p?
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, it definitely is compatible. There's an Amazon review that states it as functioning. It's really interesting. I also looked this up because I thought it was interesting. On the Elgato website, it has like dozens of Sony and Nikon and Canon models listed, but it only has the single 4K Blackmagic listed, which is odd. So maybe contact customer service and ask them why it's not listed.
Usually there's some kind of competitive sensitivity where they that's usually where that comes from. Next question. Both of them make something that goes into your computer with video, I think. Next question.
Joshua Fingold from New York has the next question. I have an M1 iMac. I want to get a Brio camera. Should I buy the normal version or the Pro Display XDR magnetic version?
Good, Rupert.
I believe both versions, certainly the regular they both have a quarter 20 on the bottom. And, I think everybody ends up just taking the shoe off the little bracket monitor stand thing and using it via some quarter 20 arrangement. And that's, I imagine, probably what most people end up doing. So from that point of view, it may not make any difference.
Good, Sky.
I do use the little shoe on my laptop, and that's why it does jiggle. I should take it's a friction shoe. That's the thing. It feels awkward to take a screwdriver in there and pry it off, but that's all it is. And then you do have a quarter 20 to be able to mount it properly so you don't jiggle the laptop. Sorry.
Next question.
Noah Sargent from Fullerton, California has the next question. In my teleprompter, I see some ghosting depending on my viewing angle. Is there a way to minimize these secondary reflections? I'm guessing it's the backside of the prompter glass.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Indeed, either that or you need to hire an exorcist. The glass, and all good prompter glass, is as thin as you can get it because it helps eliminate the ghosting. It also eliminates the problem of refraction, since the camera is shooting through the glass at a 45-degree angle. Light's getting refracted as it goes through the thickness of that glass. And good teleprompter glass has an anti-reflective coating on the backside. There's the reflective coating, which should always be facing the talent. It's called a first surface mirror. And the back should have a fluoride coating or an anti-reflective coating, like the stuff that goes on the internal lenses in a camera. It's fairly expensive, but it'll cut down that secondary reflection. And it's much less. You see it much more if you're off to the side, which is normally not how teleprompters are viewed, from the side. But direct on, you'll see less of it. And 90 thousandths is the prescribed thickness for the glass, and good quality glass.
I'm trying to think how many millimeters 90 thousandths is. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So Chad Lafarge and I have been talking about this on After Hours because I'm building teleprompters, and what he's been doing is he's been taking foam core, and he's 3D printed a little hood for his camera that he can attach to the foam core. The foam core sits right on the glass, and therefore it just darkens out that whole area and makes sure that any type of reflection won't happen. As long as it's the right type of glass, I'm going to give it a try and see how it all works.
A little more than 2 millimeters, by the way. I only asked because I was looking at some teleprompter glass and it was 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters. I'm going to test 4 millimeters only because mine is so big. Like, I'm afraid of having a 2 millimeter one being really that large. The most
easy to shatter that way. Yeah,
exactly,
right.
Exactly. The number one problem we have with teleprompters when we were building them was people would put them in backwards, and so they'd see that ghosting. So just make sure that it's not backwards. Exactly what Courtney said. When I see that ghosting, I rarely see it when it's forward, when it's the right face forward, but always see it if it's not. So go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, my teleprompter glass has little stickers in the corner, green for the side that it should be facing out and red for the inside, so you can tell easily.
Yeah. Next question.
The next question comes from Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota. He asks, are there keystrokes or other documentation of the instructions for the roles keynotes, I beg your pardon, keynotes or other documentation of the instructions for the roles in office hours, cutting, reading, etc.?
No, we don't have any of those. Yeah, so we should. We should. So as we get larger, we need to have some folks that are working on documentation for it. So next year, I totally expect a lot of this to be documented. A lot of times, I think that my resistance to it sometimes is that we're still figuring it out. And the thing you have to be very careful about, and I think that organizations get themselves into pretty quickly, is this: oftentimes people who are good at organizing groups of people are very organized themselves, And the first thing that they do is start building a bunch of rules. They like, this is what this does, and this is how it works, and this is because that's how their mind thinks, and it's why they're effective. It's why, like it's why that they get those things done. But you want to be careful of dancing with it for a little while before you start pouring concrete, is what I call it. You want to like figure out what those forms can do. And so exactly what each role is and exactly how it works, now that we're going to start defining them as we go into the spring, we really have done it for 600 and some episodes. And so we know that, like this is the way that actually works. Because what happens is if you start creating the instructions, they'll start creating the behavior before you actually watch that behavior evolve. And so you will kind of want to just see it, because that already always approach to that process can then define it. And so that tends to be one of the reasons that I don't tend to define things up front. I tend to just allow it to do its thing. And then we go, okay, well, that's not moving enough that we can actually say what it actually is. Next question.
Noah Sargent from Fullerton, California has the next question. What is Agile for project management? Could we use the Agile workflow in media?
Go ahead, Craig.
So there's two basic philosophies around project management. One is typical waterfall, which one step follows another, and the other is Agile. Agile in software development is really helpful for when the end product isn't known entirely or is somewhat flexible. So you're not designing and building all this stuff and only to realize once you launch that, oh, that's not what the public wants. And so iterating, you discover and learn on the way. You don't build skyscrapers or bridges in the Agile method because you can't keep iterating. So it really depends on, is the outcome fixed? Is the process known? And look at it that way.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, to me, Agile is also always creating small businesses. So you have large bureaucracies, and what you want to do is empower small units to go out and search and destroy missions or develop new products and that kind of stuff. So maintaining that as a corporate structure, we do that here in some ways in office hours. If you look at the Tony Mobleys and those kind of things, there's a group of people, and then we're off. There's these other teams that are going out there. They're taking resources or separating out resources, like, oops, sorry, if I can use that term properly, and developing these other projects.
Yeah, the office hours is all Agile. Like it's almost all Agile, with a little bit of guidance or whatever is really how I approach a lot of things. But I approached it this way before it was called Agile. It was mostly just the way I build things. So but I think that I call it a dance. It's a dance with the requirements and the resources, and you're just sitting there just kind of going, okay, well, what is required now and what do I have now? And then you just keep on doing that dance. Next question.
Noah Sargent also has the next question, which is, do you use business organization tools like 17 Hats? If so, what do you use?
Go ahead, Rupert.
I was just going to say a few things about business software in general and tools like this. These modular tools often have, modules for different business functions, an invoicing tool, a project management tool, a thing, and you can build it to suit around your needs. Almost all of those tools in whatever size of business rely on either you customizing the tool around your business or you customizing your business process around the tool, and there'll be some degree of customization always involved there. Having said that, I've seen the same tool implemented in different situations and have completely different reputations in that organization. And it's all down to the implementation and the training. The same tool can have a good reputation somewhere and a bad one somewhere else. There's different sizes of players at all kinds of different levels, right up to, big ERPs like NetSuite. But you'll want to really keep in mind whether compliance is a issue for you, and these days of GDPR and all that, and how much data you're really going to embed in that system. And to that point, an important consideration is all of these tools will make it really easy for you to import, for you to onboard into that system. Really, you do want to keep in mind how easy it will be to extract yourself from that system later if you want to go somewhere else.
Go ahead, Sky.
Horses for courses. My goodness, Greg, that was a brilliant definition of Agile and helped me understand it immediately. And then Roscoe, the implementation of the use case of a thing. And then Rupert, to be able to, again, talk about the community of a thing. As a consultant, my advice is always training is 80% of the expense, because it's the people that have to use it that are trying to solve a problem. And so this is all of these tools are doing. Now, I personally am still trying to get our team to use Slack. But again, it takes management. I'm still trying to understand Discord, and we're all as a community figuring out where did we put that thing. So again, that training of the community, the adaptation to solve the problem, those are two tools I use. I'd be interested in how 17 hats could solve my problem, but then I'd also need training.
Good, Roscoe.
I throw Microsoft Excel at everything. And seriously, it's the only tool I really feel I need from a business planning standpoint. I've had PERT diagrams. I haven't used them in a long time. So I'd just say, take the tools that you already know and make sure that you can master them and apply them before you go to a specialized tool.
I mean, the thing that I really like a lot about what we would approach, how we would approach it, is we would build interfaces for everybody, inside of it, or we tend to do that where, and a lot of times what we use is Google Docs, and what we build to give you a sense of it for a given project, we'd have a core doc, and that core doc would have anywhere from 10 to 15 links. That's all it is, just a bunch of links going down the center. And that was your logistics, it was your call sheets, it was your, the walkthroughs, the everything. You click on those, and so it was like a little table of contents for every event. And then you click on those, and each one of them were their own little world. They were a Google, they were a sheet, or they were a doc, or they were whatever it needed to be. It was the run of show. All those things were there, or are there. And then what happens is you have those, and you can start to go through them. We can decide who gets access to what. So when you click on it, it doesn't let you in. Well, you're not part of that team. So we were able to kind of divvy up the stuff, and we were also able to design everything in the doc that made the most sense. It could even be external links out, and so that allowed us to kind of build that out. Next question.
Tommy Chance from St. Paul, Minnesota has the next question. What would be a good monitor to pair with my new Mac Mini to experience the full HDR for Office Hours 2.0?
I'll go ahead, Tony. All right, is this, do we, there you go.
I'm going to recommend Costco's, BJ's, or Sam Club. They typically have higher end consumer level products, and that is a good solution at a reasonable price. As I said, they typically have a higher end consumer level products, and that is going to be good enough for your Mac Mini.
The thing you want to look at when you're talking about HDR is you're just looking for in the documentation, you're looking for something that says that it supports, and I wouldn't buy anything that doesn't support Dolby Vision. So if it supports Dolby Vision, it'll also support all the other things. So it'll do HLG and HDR10, and those are all good, but you want to make sure it does all of them. And so if you picked what you're looking for HDR is Dolby Vision. And so that support there. Now the Apple app makes its own XDR, but if you're getting something a little bit smaller like a Mac Mini, you're probably not looking at a $6,000 monitor. I'm just guessing. So, but LG makes a lot of great ones. Vizio makes some good ones. As far as TVs that you could output that you could just watch the content, I don't know if they would make great monitors, but I think LG makes some great HDR monitors that you could pair up with that. Those are probably some of the best. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, in a discussion about DoD plans to implement satellite broadband like Starlink, one concern was Navy sailors not being able to video chat with their families. Considering Zoom microstutters on Wi-Fi, wouldn't satellite be worse?
The answer is yes. Go ahead, Courtney.
It depends on the altitude of the satellites. The Starlink network is fairly low Earth orbit, and they're always moving. They're not geostationary. Military uses a lot of geostationary secret stuff. So that has a fairly long latency. So that's why normal, military satellite stuff might not be suitable for two-way communications, real time.
Yeah, the thing with satellites is generally not that you have stuttering. The stuttering that comes from Wi-Fi is because many tenants are talking to the Wi-Fi all at the same time. So the Wi-Fi is dropping packets because it's talking to too many people at one time. What you get with satellite is not necessarily that, unless there's a lot of people hitting that transponder. But what it really becomes is the latency. So you'll talk, you're not going to break up, but you have to sit there and nod for a second. And you see that if you watch any event like with the space station. You'll see that they always kind of, someone asks a question, and if you're good at it, what you do is you kind of split the difference by hanging on the person in the room that asked the question, and then switching over to the space station. But you'll see just a little bit of nodding, and that's because they're waiting for the signal to get to them. But you'll notice that signal coming back from the space station, if you watch any of those kinds of things, is super stable. Like it doesn't have a problem with jitter. It just has a problem with latency. Next question. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Apologies. Would the Logitech C920 camera pass Office Hours 2.0 standards with an inexpensive ring light, even though it's not 4K?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, the C920 from Logitech was sort of the workhorse and very much in demand. I'm not even sure they make it anymore. But the Brio would be a better step up, and it's in the same price range. It's under $200. And it makes a perfectly good picture, as most of the people on this panel would agree.
You go ahead, Roscoe.
I don't want to be the poster child today, but I'm on a video 360 right now, and it's pretty noisy around my edges. So I'm going to be interested to see what that looks like on 3.0. I would think a C920, you may run into the same issues, noise in the signal.
Yeah, the C920 has gotten soft. So compared to the Brio. So I would highly recommend strongly considering the Brio over the C920. Next question.
Hector Rodriguez from Springfield, Virginia asks, what programs are popular to capture NDI signals on an Apple TV 4K in kiosk mode?
Go ahead, Guy.
If it means to display them, then the $99 app from Sienna is expensive, but the nice thing is it works. It's solid. You can control it from a web browser, and you can install it on as many Apple TVs and iOS devices as you'd like. So it's pretty cool, considering a Bird Dog Play is $149, which does pretty much the same thing as an Apple TV. That's $150 plus the software is $250. So it just depends on what you want to do and how many, but Sienna.
So Sienna is you can have Sienna on the Apple TV, and then you just have anything that has NDI point to it.
Well, it's discoverable on the network. So with the Apple remote control, you click once. So the screen will appear and it'll say, click to select your source. You click it, and then you'll see all your NDI sources. So like I have a Discovery server. So in the settings in my Apple TV, I go into specifically the Sienna settings, and I can say, use this Discovery server, and then I see all my devices just really fast. So it works really well. It's super stable. Yeah,
That's
Tucker
really cool.
bought 4 Apple TVs to be able to do this for a recent show, so he's embraced them as well.
I have so many Apple TVs laying around because I buy new ones, and I somehow ended up with a pile of them, and I use them. I just do the screen, for when that's my cheap way of doing wireless cameras with my iPhone, is I just pair the iPhone, just share the iPhone with the Apple TV, and then it's a wireless camera, and it works great. But Sienna makes it a little bit more open to a lot of different things. Go ahead, Rupert.
So, Guy, does that work in kiosk mode? So will the Apple TV like auto boot up and load that app by default in like a kiosk mode type situation?
I haven't tried that, but I can during after hours. I have it all set up.
Excellent. Yeah, we should try that. Next question.
Michael Andreas from Olathe in Kansas says, during the session with Michael Krasny yesterday, I noticed that his camera wobbled up and down. With the Office Hours 2.0, will Office Hours 2.0 include image stabilization and other similar improvements for situations like this?
Yeah, that's a limitation of our remote kit. So Michael Krasny was using one of our what we call our small remote kit, and I happened to put it on a table that was he lives close enough to my house that I was able to I just grabbed one of our kits and brought it over and put it up. It was kind of a glass table, and it just was highly vibrating. And the way we build those kits is to make them really easy to set up, so that you just set the camera on top of the monitor. There's a monitor and a Mac Mini, and a couple lights, and you throw it on top. The problem with that is the vibration. So having that webcam share a surface with whatever they could possibly put their hands on is usually what causes the issue, but you kind of end up with that. So yeah, I thought about it afterwards and thought we have to kind of play around with that design a little bit, but it's a hard thing to fix in quick setups to make that work, because you're basically building into somewhere else. Our larger kit, of course, has a tripod, and so it doesn't need that. Next question.
Isaac Lay from Dayton, Ohio asks, any ideas where someone in the US can get a Behringer Flow 8 that isn't overpriced or shipping in 9 to 12 weeks?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Sweetwater Sound is the only dealer in the United States right now for those products, and I'm waiting 12 weeks as we speak, or maybe more. I don't even know. I ordered it when we talked about it a while ago.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was going to say the same thing. Sweetwater is where you go. I saw it on Amazon for $400. So if you need it now, you're going to be overpaying and waiting.
All right, go ahead, Tim. Can't hear you, Tim. Go ahead, Josh.
Andertons. I got it 10 pounds shipping with actually less than what Sweetwater listed it as. Highly recommended. They're very professional, even provided the appropriate charging cable with it.
Outstanding. No, and can you spell that again? What that link is?
Yeah, Andertons, ANDERTONS.co.uk.
Awesome. Next question.
Joe from Gainesville says, I made the leap and bought 7030 glass for my desktop teleprompter / eye contact build. Am I going to regret not losing a little more video quality and going for 6040?
Go ahead, Noah.
My understanding is it's not image quality you lose a little bit of stoppage or exposure, essentially, right? So it's a little darker. It's a little harder for your camera to shoot through that glass. So you're not necessarily losing quality unless your camera's older and you have to ISO up.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, exactly what Noah said. And you'll have a little less problem with ghosting with the higher reflectivity glass, the 6040, than the 7030. And the 30 side is the reflective side. The 70 side is the transmission side. So that's how transparent the glass is. 70% transmissive, and the 30 is 30% reflective. So I don't think you should regret it. It should work fine for you, especially if you're indoors. 7030 should work okay. In a high brightness situation, a very bright room, the 6040 might give you a little easier to read image.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 6040 on the one that I'm building, and the reason for that is I want to be able to see my screen a little bit clearer, and so I'm going to go that direction just to make it a little. I mean, I'm tempted to light more and go 50-50, but those are hard to find. Next question.
Eric Butkus from Chicago says, are there any lights that you recommend that can be sent to remote contributors and controlled by the producer at another location?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out right now. I'm surprised nobody else is raising their hand on this one. I mean, there's a couple things that you can do with an M1 Mac and, load an app on. You could go super basic and use Philips Hue style lights and use an Alexa and talk to the thing. One of the things that I'm working on is there's a new device that was supposed to get released at IBC. This is a NDI to DMX bridge. And so what I want to do with this is I'm going to plug it in at the studio and then use NDI bridge from my house to be able to control these Aperture P300C. So I have one up here. And the idea is that I'm not having to use Streamweaver and a different connection or VPN or any of that stuff. So it'd be just NDI bridge and then control, because in Sienna on the Mac, this became quite the discussion the other day on the forums. Is down here there is a little NDI DMX control, but I reached out to Jeff Keithley and he says it's working, but this was just a proposal, and Jeff Keithley says that it's actually working. So I'm excited to see if between the new product that is from Salray Works and using Sienna on the Mac, if you can control those lights remotely. So again, using just these that are built into I believe this is a free app, the NDI Signal Generator app, because there's other stuff in here, NDI MIDI control, metadata that you could send over that would control those lights. So cool stuff.
for our next generation, we're definitely looking at moving to DMX lights, and then figuring out how we're going to talk to those lights is one thing over IP. We're probably going to use on our end. We'll probably use Streamweaver, and then use an NTech or a DMX King to convert the IP information into a DMX signal. Next question.
Isaac Lay from Dayton, Ohio says he's starting a remote software quality assurance engineer job on the 3rd of January. What gadgets and accessories are at your desk from working from home?
Go ahead, Rupert.
We talk about so much of this all the time. So obviously you need all the things and lots of everything, but little thing I find quite useful, little mobile phone stand, cell phone stand. If you're using wireless charging, you can get wireless equivalents of these, but this was something I didn't have, but found very useful once I got it.
Go ahead, Sky.
Well, your health, and that's how do you support that? And that's the thing I'm thinking about, a good chair, but then maybe you want a standing desk, because that way you're not, sedentary, because you might be in front of a screen for a long period of time talking to other humans through technology. So think about your health and how can you sit properly? How can you have exercise time as well?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I really like the Stream Deck. It's so useful. You can do a lot of shortcut keys and integrate it into Zoom and Teams, all that kind of stuff that you might be using. And it's pretty innovative as far as just having a handy item right on your desk.
Next question.
Guy Gleason from Seattle, Washington asks, how does RTMP feed fit into the live streaming workflow?
Go ahead, Noah.
RTMP, real-time messaging protocol, is the current standard for sending streaming out to like YouTube, Facebook, whatnot. RTS is starting to overtake that or be more popular from my experience or from what I've seen. But it's definitely a core part of the signal chain, right? So after your video switcher going into your streaming software, that then outputs to one of those platforms, like I said, via RTMP.
And Jeffrey?
Yeah, RTMP mostly, go to Facebook, go to YouTube, but you can also set up an RTMP server at home and accept incoming connections. Plus, if you have like something like Restream, you use Restream Studio, you can actually bring in other sources through other RTMPs. So you could have like 2, 3, 4 computers bringing in signal into their Studio app and then switch those from there.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with RTMP right now. I mean, it became ubiquitous for everything. I think a lot of folks, as some of our other discussions have brought up, have been, moving, to other things. And that's mostly the limitations of what RTMP can and cannot do. We actually, our 2.0 here is actually streaming via HLS to YouTube. So there's a couple different options there. Next question.
The next question is from Sir Jace Chewers in South Carolina. Does anyone else hate the newest Adobe Creative Suite updates?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I don't like subscription services, but it's here to stay, and I think companies are figuring out that that's the way to have a better business model. I have every box for every Adobe product sitting in a shelf behind me from the old days of Aldus, so that'll give you an idea how many boxes I have. I do like the idea I don't have a bunch of boxes to deal with, but the subscription model is here to stay, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I do think that Adobe it's good. It's a good business model for now. I think that in some ways, I feel like it almost forces them to evolve faster than they would normally, because the reason for that is that they're creating this huge, basically under area, all this brush growing up of other people who are becoming successful because Adobe has a subscription product so that people don't like. So I use Affinity Photo most of the time because I use Photoshop when I need to, but I'm slowly trying to move. More and more away. And in our company, I don't buy Photoshop for everybody. Like things have to go through Affinity first. And so it's because I don't want to pay for those subscriptions. So I think that they've created a lot of opportunities in that area because of that. And I think because of that, they have to do it. Now, I just subscribed to their Substance line, the 3D Painter and so on and so forth, because it's a great product, and at some point you just pay what you need to pay to get it done. Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't really like the subscription model because I think it makes companies lazy, and they don't have to update their software to be competitive because they've got you on that subscription. So they'll do bug fixes and roll those out, but they don't have to improve the product year after year to sell you a new copy year after year. They've got you hooked on the subscription. So it can stay the same and everybody's happy, because they're not having to buy a new version every year, but you're ending up paying for it every single year. Anyway. So
yeah, I think the hardest part that a lot of these software manufacturers had was that a lot of us would fall off. Like for instance, I felt like the last good version of Illustrator was 6, and the last version that I really needed of Photoshop was about 6. And so a lot of us would just sit there and just use that until the operating system forced us to upgrade because something, some libraries weren't compatible. And I think that creates a harder position for them from a business perspective. But I agree with you in a lot of ways. Next question.
Craig McFarlane in Boston says, I learned so much from the Ruthless review shows. When is the next one likely?
Next one is going to be in January, maybe in December if I have to fill something in, but probably January. And we're going to be doing HDR reviews. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how to do that. But you'll be able to watch it in 2.0 where we talk about how, not just how someone looks for Office Hours 2.0, but how do they look inside of HDR10 going out to YouTube. So next question.
The next question is from Isaac Lay in Dayton, Ohio. My main monitor is the Dell 49-inch Super Ultra Wide. It's sitting on the included stand right now, but I'd like to wall or desk mount it. What hardware should I pick up?
Go ahead, Rupert.
So with a big screen like that, I may go wall mounted to isolate any movement from your desk or things like that. So you could go with one of these pull out semi-articulated. That would give you some adjustment, left, right, and tilt to get it in the right position. If you're going into a stud wall, then I always recommend this particular stud finder from Franklin Sensors. If you're going into a wall on that size, it'll be essential to get into some studs. But if you're going into concrete, then you'll want to use some concrete wall anchors or something like that.
One thing to be careful about with the extending ones, not that this has ever happened to me, is as you take a very large TV, and 49 inches is not that big, but if you get into, let's say, a 70-inch, in that extending system, you're creating a lever with a lot of weight. And so it's going to pull down on whatever you put into that wall. And that can become catastrophic, just in case you're wondering. Next question.
The next question is from Douglas Carmichael, and he refers back to his earlier question. In the same DoD article about low latency satellite broadband, it mentioned service members taking online courses. Could an Office Hours 2.0 like system with a universe interface on a touch panel streamline the process and enable more courses to be online?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Content is king, and compelling content is what streamlining might using those interface may be. So sure, if you have the right people and you line them up, you give them better interface to deliver stuff, it could streamline the production of higher quality content.
Next question.
The next question is from the Seventh Scroll in Brooklyn, New York. For a BM Ursa Broadcast G2, the 16x Fujinon servo zoom lens, a B4 mount, didn't get the sharp throw anticipated. Would you recommend the 20 times Fujinon B4 or an EF servo zoom lens instead?
Go ahead, Noah.
So the main difference between those two lenses obviously is the sensor size that it's trying to hit, essentially, right? And so the broadcast can allow you to crop in for that B4 lens if you end up using it. The 20x, obviously, you have that throw, right? So if you're in a situation or you're in situations where you need to have super wide shots or super tight shots, you have that flexibility versus most of the servos for the EF or, the 1880 or the 70 to 200, you have a limited throw minus the super awesome 17 to 120, but it's like $26,000. So.
Or the 85 to 300, which is about $32,000. Not that I bought two. Anyway, so the Fujinon, the full 30 Super 35, the Cabrio line is amazing, for that, but very expensive. So you want to think about that. The real advantage that you get out of the B4s is the availability of all these lenses and a much larger zoom rating. The hard part we get to is the longest lens we can usually put on a PL or onto an EF is the Canon 51,000, which also has like a little bit of a semi-doubler. It's not an exact doubler. It's a 1.5 or something like that. And at that point, we can get head and shoulder at 75 feet. And that's as far as we can throw it. Now that lens is something that we rent because it's $80,000, and there's like one woman that finishes the lens in Japan. We met her at NAB one time. We were like, "You're the person who makes the lens," and there's and you have to think about it. But otherwise, you're those B4 lenses are never going to be quite as sharp until you start really spending money on those zooms. To get that kind of quality takes a little bit to do. Go ahead, Noah.
I think they only make like three or four of those a year. It's just something crazy.
I asked, like, what happens when you get sick? And they're like, the line stops. Until and so I was like, I bet you they take really good care of her. Next question.
The next question is from George Butters in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Any suggestions for a solid, flexible mount for webcams like the Brio to affix to a desk? The goal is to put the lens on a level with my eyes rather than propping on top of the monitor with me looking up.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So there are several different options that you can see on things like Amazon, which basically attach to the desk and a little pole that goes up. With the Brio, you have the mount, which just basically pops off, and then you can screw that right on there. The only problem with that is the same thing we talked about earlier with when we were talking about Michael Krasny and his video. It starts to shake if you start moving the desk. There are some solutions that do have a shock mount option to it, but the only way the better way that the shock mount will really work is if the bar comes up and over, and then the web camera will hang from the top of it rather than coming up straight from the table.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, not specifically flexible as in it flexes, but different ways to mount. I've bought a couple of these in the last month, one of them for my desk, and I have one of them in my smoky wood shop. And it's got the side thing. It doesn't show it here, but it actually comes with a little phone clippy thing. But there's two little ball mounts. So if you mount your Brio on that, you can tilt it and spin it and bears them. It's made really well. And if you just need a vertical, it's cheap, but go ahead and get the extra side thing. You might find a use for it.
That is genius. It looks really cool. Go ahead, Rupert.
So what I do is I have a bracket that holds my Brio just down below the top bezel of my monitor. And what I use to do that is this thing here. So I have a magic arm behind the monitor that goes down and clamps onto like the VESA hardware at the back. And then it comes up and attaches to where this captive bolt is. I remove that, and then I drop the arm down below there and secure the Brio with a 1/4-20 in from below.
Next question.
The next question is from Sarah Doyle in Falls Church, Virginia. With RTMP going to the wayside with the rise of HLS and SRT, what are your thoughts on Zixi?
Zixi, in my opinion, is the... I'm sorry. Go ahead, Noah.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I don't have a strong ground with Zixi, but specifically with HLS and SRT, we really don't know how quickly that innovation can switch over because there's a lot of variables in that. But if you look at something like H.264, which has been a standard since like 2003 when it was first put out, like that stuck around for a very long time. So it could be like H.264 where it's just grounded for a long time and everybody's dragging their feet, or it could be like a very fast changeover.
Yeah, the Zixi, in my opinion, is the industry standard as far as how stable you can get something there. But as we've discussed in other sessions, if everybody was using Zixi, the whole internet would stop. Like if everyone who does live streaming did it, because it ignores most of the rules of being a good citizen on the internet. So for those of us that want to do it, Zixi works great as long as it doesn't become ubiquitous. So that's the thing that we have to be kind of conscious to as we start to look down those areas. It's extremely effective. We've used Zixi all over the place. The link boxes, the elemental links that we use Zixi plus a little bit of elemental magic sauce to really take advantage of it. And where Zixi really stands above SRT is the ability to handle a frequently fluctuating internet connection effectively. It does a much better job at flexing from our experience than SRT. But otherwise, I actually think that SRT is a more likely candidate as the next generation, or HLS, which has been is kind of the early one, but still very effective. Next question.
This is the last question of this hour from Chris Taylor in Carlsbad, California. Alex, you have a lot of bookcase shelves in your MakerPipe build. 1, do you need that many shelves? And 2, have you thought about adding a long 2-foot or 60 centimeter wide counter high shelf similar to Rupert's? It would seem more useful.
Well, this is a really good question for Monday. We should talk about it on Monday, and people can give me their opinion. In fact, I put the models up. You can just tear them apart and build something else. So part of it is that I like to have things that I can change without having to hang things behind me. So the idea of having a shelf unit means I can kind of change the look and feel of what I have behind me without having to like figure out how I'm going to put it on the wall or figure out those little bits and pieces. As far as shelves go, I feel like you can almost not have enough shelves ever. Like you just, and the problem with shelves is that they're like bags. You'll just figure out a way to fill them no matter what. So no matter how many shelves you have, you'll figure out what to put on them, and then you have a tendency not to take them off. So that's the danger of it. But I think that I like the fact that you're kind of, I want my room to feel a little like you're in a workroom, not something that is shiny. I will say that I do like Rupert's, and my shelving idea is a little bit based on Rupert's because I thought that looks really cool. I just wanted to go all the way up. So for the ones that I'm building out there. All right. And now we are going to change subjects. And so really, really excited to have David Schlitter here from MakerPipe. I don't know exactly how this all kind of curved together, but someone started bringing up MakerPipe, and I just thought, oh, this is the coolest thing. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know if it'll be strong enough, but I started looking at all the different examples. I downloaded the little book of ideas and started looking at it, and I thought, oh, I think that this will actually work for what we're doing. And of course, now I've purchased a lot of MakerPipe, which I'm starting to put together. I think that it's just really revolutionary as far as really making it making something available to everyone. And so we started talking about it. A lot of us started building stuff and thinking through it. And I thought we'd see if David could come on and talk a little bit about it. And David, it's really, really good to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much. And I'm honored to be on. And I think the conversation's been kind of neat too. I've brushed up on the previous episode. So
yeah,
thanks so much.
You've seen us think hard about it as far as how we're doing it here. Now, how did you get started with MakerPipe? What was the genesis of the idea?
So I have a background in manufacturing engineering and management, and we would always use similar systems to build out whole entire facilities or production lines. And specifically with lean manufacturing as well. It was similar products came in handy with lean manufacturing and that thinking. And then I thought, hey, this is great stuff. I want to use it in my personal life. I want to build things around the house. I've got projects. I'm like you guys. I have no shortage of projects. And I wanted to use something similar personally. And, I thought electrical conduit was such an undervalued item or right, building material, right? And in case you don't know, our connectors use electrical conduit to form a structure. And you guys have been talking a lot about that. But I thought electrical conduit was such this inexpensive, relatively strong material that you can get most anywhere.
Right.
So I married the two ideas together and set out to do a Kickstarter campaign to gauge the interest in MakerPipe. And it went well. My wife and I are co-founders in this and co-owners, and it went well and kind of sent us on a trajectory for the last 5 years to build MakerPipe.
That's amazing. So you've been doing this for 5 years.
Yes, 5 years.
What are some of the coolest things you've seen someone build with MakerPipe?
The community is amazingly creative. Our customers are amazingly creative. And every day I'm surprised by what people build. And some of the things that come to mind, and I've got some of the examples pulled up here, are like a go-kart right here that you can see. This is a go-kart. We dubbed this a stormtrooper table because it had kind of that Star Wars look. And then everything from like the utilitarian kind of things to outdoor furniture to gardening and agriculture, small business, really a gamut of different things that people build. But I'm amazed every day.
And that's the thing that I love about it, is that it is something that it really is. People are using it for everything. And how did you come up with the manufacturing process for the connectors? You come from manufacturing, right?
I come from manufacturing, but I'd say more of a DIY mindset laid a hand in that, because starting a business and bootstrapping a business like we have, you have to come up with manufacturing processes that aren't expensive, right? They're
right.
Simple. So it was out of necessity, really, to figure it out. We do all of our own tooling and manufacturing here in South Carolina, and I bought the most inexpensive CNC milling machine that you could possibly imagine to make our first prototype type dies. It was less than $3,000 on Craigslist, and we just figured out a way to do it.
And how do you build those? So those are you're using CNC to build out the dies?
Yeah.
We're geeky, so I'm going to ask you, like, what CNC mill do you use? Because I'm always in the market.
Yeah. That's great. And that's why I'm so excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
So we started off with a Grizzly drill mill, which is this manual machine. And there's a whole community that goes about converting it to CNC, inexpensive. So that was our first machine. And we are machining steel blocks that have a positive and negative mold on them, and then just squish them in a press, right? We squish the steel in between and form our parts. So we've graduated to, I'd say the garage version or semi-pro version of that CNC machine to do the Kickstarter dies in our first connectors. And that's a Novacon CNC, very similar to a Tormach, if anyone's interested.
Oh, that's awesome. No, the Tormachs have been something that I've been circling for a long time. so anyway, that's great. And so that's how these get built. They're basically, you have a form, you have to cut out the steel at a certain shape, and then you just whack them, right? Yeah. I mean, they're just getting formed. It's really, really fascinating. And you run everything out of South Carolina?
Yeah, we do everything out of South Carolina. We do the actual forming in our shop and all the media and everything. And then we have partners local in South Carolina that we get U.S. steel from, that we have the finishing done, like the zinc coating or e-coating, that our parts are either silver or black. So everything's done local, and we're really proud of that. I really, truly believe in American manufacturing that is competitive in price.
Where do you see yourself going with MakerPipe?
Well, we're having a blast. I think it's a lot of fun. This is a dream come true as far as a business goes, and a goal. I hope to find our way into some small hardware stores one day, like an Ace.
Right next to the EMT. It's got to be right next to the EMT. Like, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we appreciate the orders through our website, right? But a lot of folks, they want to see it and touch it and buy it locally. So we're hoping to expand that reach.
I have 2 words for you: Kohl's Hardware. In San Francisco, that'll be the one. Anyway, so that they're independent, and they have always the greatest things. And the last thing before we jump into the questions, it turned out when you and I started talking and to get ready for this, for you to come on, you've heard of us before.
I have. I've used office hours in my journey to figure out how to communicate and live stream through video. It was not but a year ago, really. And as you do on YouTube, I was looking for information, try to understand all these technologies, and office hours popped up quite a bit. So I've taken many long walks trying to understand Companion and ATEM Minis and all these technologies with office hours. So thank you for that. It's been a big help.
Well, and I will say that you seem to have learned very well. Looking at your camera shot, you've learned pretty well from what we're doing. It looks really, really good. And are you able to show us the rig that you've I assume that it's a little bit of a MakerPipe rig.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple other camera. I've got this shot where you can see kind of the monitors and the rig around me and my desk. And if we want to dive in, we can also do that with some examples. We put the rig up on YouTube, and we did a quick walkthrough as a reference for people if they were thinking about doing something similar. So we can take a look at that if that's of interest.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that, and then we're going to jump into questions.
Okay.
Well, and you don't need to play it through. You can just kind of skip through to show a little bit of it. I don't think we can watch the whole thing, but people can jump to it. But if you kind of look at, there's a great explanation here. There you go. There's like all the different.
Here we go.
Yeah. So there's that's the bigger rig that's there, which I think is really, really well done. It definitely had me feel like, looking at that had me feel like I'm going the right direction. Because of course, as you know, I'm building a big part of my set with MakerPipe, and I was like, oh, this will work.
Yeah, it was a great thing for me. I mean, obviously we use MakerPipe whenever we have a project, right? But in learning how to do this video production, it was a real iterative process. And I know you guys have talked a lot about that in previous live streams, but I had to figure out all these technologies, and I was kind of adding things as I went. And, you know, obviously I'm going to say good things about our product, right? But it really helped me add a teleprompter or put a light in a different spot, or, you know, as I learned the technology. So I hope to share that as a good use. Yeah.
It's actually one of the reasons that it was easy for me to commit to what you're doing, was because I knew that, if I decide to change my shelves someday, or if I try to do something, I still have a bunch of parts, and I have a relatively cheap EMT that I can build it, so I can just go use these parts somewhere else. I'm not just getting rid of that. I'll just have a lot of scrap laying around that I'll use somewhere else, and I'll recut EMT and then have that, so that modular process was super important for how I thought, oh, this will actually be useful. Because what I'm coming from is mostly speed rail and Hollander connectors, which are, typically 10 times more expensive. And we're still going to use parts of that for the grid just because of what I'm hanging there. But I really got that using that for everything was going to be overkill, and that's actually what stopped me until I saw MakerPipe. So it's exciting. I'm going to jump to questions because they are stacking up. So here are some questions from our audience here. Tlaloc Miguel Lopez Waterman asks, what types of pipes and ODs are supported by the MakerPipe fixtures?
We designed our connectors to fit EMT conduit natively, but through the community interaction and trying different things, we found a lot of other sizes fit. So 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch EMT fit depending on your configuration, but also things like copper pipe, PVC, galvanized water pipe, or black iron pipe, wooden dowels. There's really, as long as you can make it fit and match the outside diameter of your pipe, you can address a number of different materials.
Interesting. Next question is from A. Mitchells in Washington, D.C. He said, given many here plan to use this system to hang things overhead, what would be your suggested MakerPipe products for attaching to ceilings, and what is the recommended WLL of these products? What's the rated maximum unsupported, or what is the rated maximum unsupported span of EMT for this use?
Sure. That's a common application. And I'd like to first say that when building with EMT conduit and MakerPipe fittings there's a limitation, right? The connectors themselves, they rely on friction, and we've kind of tried to create a good value, right? An intersection between strength and value and ease of use. So I would say that some of the common applications for doing something overhead, where you have to be considering of the weight, in the application, but is to attach parallel pieces of conduit to the ceiling. And what I mean by that is just run a piece of conduit along the ceiling, and then tie into the 2x4s or whatever your structure is above the ceiling with something like a 1-hole or 2-hole strap that electricians use all the time. And that's kind of the neat thing about MakerPipe and building with electrical conduit is there's already a ton of things out there that help you build your idea. So that's those 1-hole straps, 2-hole straps are really good. Another thing that we came up with was, well, the community came up with was using threaded pipe flanges to go from a flat surface to conduit. And we did a video all about that if you want to dive more into it, where we kind of go through community generated ideas. And that is this one right here.
And from one of the things that I think really makes the one of the reasons that I wanted to bring David on was specifically because of how they approach support. How MakerPipe approaches support, where there's tons of videos. The basically the how-to the lots of objects. They have this little book PDF that you can download, has just great examples that gets your mind moving. You were going to show a video of someone doing that. Sorry, I was stretching while you were looking for it, but then you found it. I was already in the middle of it. Go ahead.
And that's really important to us is the community interaction, because everybody that uses Conduit to build and MakerPipe, they've got way better ideas than we do. And this is one example of that, where someone said, "Hey, I can thread in these this flange to MakerPipe, which is an off-the-shelf item. We don't even supply that. You can get that locally." And then we kind of outline how you can secure that with a few different options, and even run a threaded insert inside of the conduit to secure it even more. So that community interaction is super important to us, and the ideas are better than one person. And I don't have to explain that to you guys. You guys know community really well.
We got a black screen coming from you right now.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Next question is from Craig McFarland from Boston. He says, what are the most common causes for structural fails? Long segments, unbalanced design, bolts and loosening. And I know we got you into your switcher into a state, I think. There we go.
I apologize about that.
Yeah, no worries. So what are the most common causes for structural fails?
So you have to be considerate of conduit. Conduit is made out of steel, and it is fairly thin walled. You don't have a lot of wall there, but it is steel. So weight load over a long unsupported span is something to keep in mind in your design process. And then as the connectors go, the connectors are strongest in, let me get my connector here. All right. The connector is strongest taking a force in this regard. So resisting slipping down. And that helps shelving these types of applications. But you have to be really considerate to pull out of the connecting pipe, right? Because it's just relying on friction to grab on there. Now, a lot of the community members, if they have a very demanding application, they'll actually drill into the connector and run a self-tapping screw into the conduit, which is still semi-permanent, but it really aids in the strength of that direction. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Next question. I'm sorry, I'm doing the questions. Greg McFarland says, any suggestions for a quick adjust hand tighten, like a large wing nut or cam lever?
Yeah, that's been a hot topic in our community, and I know you guys mentioned it in an earlier episode. There's a couple options that the community has come up with. One is a bicycle seat post quick release. If the threads are M6, it works with our connectors, and we've had community members be really successful like that. And we use it in our rig actually for a quick disconnect for a camera as well. You can see that in the video. We've also had people take knobs with an M6 threaded bolt, and then use those as well. So that's 2 applications. But I think in general, all you need to build with MakerPipe is a couple simple hand tools, including an M5 Allen wrench. And it's really pretty quick to disassemble and reconnect just as is.
Next question is from Craig McFarland as well. He said, what are your thoughts or expectations on supporting 1/2 inch EMT for lightweight needs?
Okay, great question. We've had a lot of interest in that, especially as the price has gone up on conduit. We're in a little bit of a metal crunch right now. And when we started MakerPipe, it was like $3.50 for a 10-foot length in our area. Now it's a little bit more. I still think it's a great value, but a lot of people go to that because it's less expensive, especially if the load doesn't need it. So because we designed our connectors for 3/4 inch EMT, we had a lot of requests. We came up with a shim, and this shim is PEX tubing. It's nothing special. We run it through a die at our shop, but it is the perfect size to adapt 1/2 inch EMT conduit into our connectors. So people have been using that with a good amount of success. And it allows you to kind of go back and forth between sizes. So you can go from 1/2 inch EMT in some areas to 3/4 and even up to 1 inch, because we're adding the 1 inch EMT line.
Next question is from Chris Widner in Lafayette, Indiana. He said, in the stream about studio desks on December 1, the discussion covered making a camera arm. What kind of things have people done to dampen vibrations for these kinds of uses?
I think what I've seen and what I've used is isolation more than anything. The frame that I have is isolated from my desk, and that eliminates a lot of the vibrations that I experience. I can't think of too many, to answer your question, I can't think of too many other than that.
Another question here is similar from Roscoe Jones in Brea, California. What are the issues with using MakerPipe in a shaky environment, such as a vehicle?
Well, we've had a lot of customers use MakerPipe in conjunction with vehicles or an environment that has a lot of vibration. They stay fairly tight. And of course, you want to always check it. But I think the reason why the connectors stay tight is that there's a little bit of squish or force against the hardware, and it acts kind of like a spring washer. So you'll find that if you're building in that environment, the connectors stay pretty tight.
Next question is from Stan Chan in Roseville. Where should I get started once I get my connectors? There doesn't seem to be a great starting guide in the box.
Yeah. So we have a couple resources. One that I'd really like to invite anyone thinking about building with MakerPipe 2 is we have a Facebook style community where a lot of people ask questions, show off their build. So that can be a great resource for you. Also on just YouTube, we put a lot of content out on YouTube, plenty of videos that cover a wide variety of topics. And like I'm doing here, we love to help our builders. Call our number. It comes to me directly most of the time, and I'm happy to help anyone trying to solve a problem.
This is what actually flipped the switch, and I was like, oh, I have to bring David on. Was every time I contacted MakerPipe when I was like buying a couple things and thinking about a couple things or need to, and I'm trying to think through this, either David or his wife would immediately come back and answer a question like that. And I was like, when do these guys sleep? Like it was just like, and I'm just some random guy sending out emails like boom, 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 boom. I get all this information back about how to, and I asked, and where it really turned was I asked for the 3D models of the object of the connectors. And I was like, and I thought, oh, they're going to say, well, we'll think about it. And David came back and said, oh, we've already built those. They're in our community. Here's the link, and I was like, okay, so now we can really, and that's, it really helps me to think through it. And David, if you're open to it, I'm thinking about putting a MakerPipe channel in the office hours. Would you be able to monitor that if we throw it in there?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
Okay, awesome. So we'll start building that up too on our end. And there's a lot of us that are already, as you can see from Stan, already buying boxes of stuff, trying to figure out what to do with it. Next question is from Jack B. in Phoenix, Arizona. It said, having fun remodeling my office with MakerPipe. Any suggestions for best practices with shelving? I've been using a 2-hole conduit straps to attach the pipe to plywood. Is this the norm?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Either 2-hole straps or 1-hole straps. You're on the right track. Absolutely.
That's great. Next question is from Chris Fenwick. He said, where did you source the desk surface in your Maker desk?
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for that question. I made it myself. And I made it when lumber was just going absolutely crazy. So I got it at Lowe's, and these are edge glued pine strips that I then sandwiched together, glued and screwed, and it made the desktop.
It looks great. It's really, really good. Next question is from Rupert McCrae in Dallas, Texas. He said, have you seen designs prototyped with MakerPipe that have then gone on to mass manufacture?
Yeah, we work with a number of different companies that use our product in their product. And I think it really helps low volume prototyping and then low volume production as well. Yeah. They also see a benefit a lot of times with shipping because everything packs so flat. But yeah, some stick with it and some get it tooled up in a different production method. But it's been really a joy working with those companies as well.
I know when in the before days and in my earlier company, when we were doing tons and tons of this custom builds and building out things and everything else, it would have been nice to know that you guys were around. so there was a lot of things that we were screwing together that just couldn't quite figure out how to build that apparatus. And we would, and that's why I think that having just boxes, I mean, I'm building something here, but my plan is to have boxes of this just kind of sitting around. So I go, okay, I need to do this little thing. And all I need to do is kind of cut away something quickly and put it together. It's really, really amazing. Next question is from James Hutchinson from Dublin, Ireland. He said, is it available in Europe? And if so, what would be an equivalent European pipe?
Yeah, great question. I know your audience or your community is international. So we've built this for imperial conduit, metal conduit. And in a lot of parts of the world, it is metric. So you can find steel metric tubing. I know England is one of those, but our connectors won't fit off right away. So you'll have to just do some adapting if you want to go that route. And in the future, we hope to make metric sizes as well.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. Could MakerPipe be used for commercial spaces like restaurants or bars?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that we've had a lot of customers do that already, from pop-up stores to bar backs. And yeah, as long as the aesthetic fits what you're looking for, I think it's great.
Next question is from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, one of the best features of single fastener joint construction is quick build tear down time. What are some of the tips and principles for building modular rigs that need to be reassembled in the field?
Oh, yeah. Great question. One of the things that I learned was leave the connectors on the pipe and just loosen them up and then take the structure apart. We did a number of different maker fairs all over the country, and we started off by just taking all the connectors off the pipe. And we learned, hey, leave them on, just take an Allen wrench, loosen one of the joints, and then you can disassemble it and it flat packs really easily. So if you design with that in mind, it'll be a very quick tear down.
And label them. Like I've built a lot of things that are things, and labeling like this one goes to this and this goes to this. I put lots of little labels on pipes. We've done this with speed rail, and we do lots of little like stickers on them of this is A and this is A, and you just put them together. It's one of those things, even if you already know how it goes together, you stop thinking about it and you just go, I'm looking for this pipe, in that process. Next question is from A. Mitchells in Washington. He says, how does the support rating and usage for the MakerPipe connectors change when moving from the relatively lightweight EMT to the much heavier Schedule 40 and 80 black pipe for overhead uses or longer spans?
It's dramatic. That the wall thickness on black iron pipe or something like that is much greater, so you can span a much larger distance. And we've recently created a 1-inch EMT line of connectors, which you can adapt to 3/4-inch black iron pipe with a simple shim again. And we have started providing those shims on our website. I won't go to it, but yeah, you can get that done relatively easy.
That's great. Next question is from Chris Widner in Lafayette, Indiana. He said, what clamp is holding your Zoom P4?
My Zoom P4 is on a Manfrotto Mini Pixie, I think. And just a spring clamp for the smartphone.
Right. Very good. Next question is from Keenan Campbell in Princeton, Illinois. Would you consider selling the caster adapters without the casters so that we can use larger casters?
Yeah, absolutely. We will. If you search on our website, you might be able to find the caster adapter for 1/2-inch threaded stems. And they're just 3D printed items that we do in-house. We 3D print those and then some other accessories, but get in contact with us. I'll set you up so you can use what you'd like.
And we have to ask, what 3D printer do you use?
We have a farm. It's grown to 10 Ender 3D printers, and they go around the clock as much as we can keep them going.
I know it's I've walked into a couple places where you just see 20 of them just sitting there like just building them. It's quite a thing.
Yeah, and the main thing that we print are these. These miniature connectors that allow people to kind of prototype their build. So these are 3D printed parts, and they use coffee stirrers that you can buy on.
So good.
Yeah, we're especially excited about these because they're a game changer when you're trying to actually prototype your build and figure it out. Right?
Yeah,
you can use your hands and do that.
Yeah, the two things that I found that I really wanted is that I'm probably going to try to build as I work through this is I built the first one that I've been posting on Mondays. And for people watching, on Mondays, we're kind of designing a lot of this stuff and we're using a bunch of MakerPipe. And I'm doing it all in Cinema 4D. But the problem is what I really need is an instance in a CAD program or an instance in SketchUp because instances have their own set of rules. Once you build that instance, you can just kind of snap it to things and pull things apart and you can kind of create those. And so I think that for me, I'm going to try to play around with building those instances because I think that'll make it a lot faster. When you watch someone build like with 80/20, like we work with a company called CabinetWorks up in Ohio, and they build our 80/20 stuff for us. And I sit there in a screen share watching Brian at CabinetWorks sit there and just build what I want out. And it's just super fast because everything's an instance and everything just has rules. Oh, I have a pipe and I throw the pipe in, then I just draw the length out. And I'm not scaling it. I'm not trying to figure it out. I just snap it to this thing and pull it out. And I think that, that's what we're trying to, I think that would make it easier. And then of course, what I'm also playing with is figuring out a way to do it in USDZ so that you can see it, so if you look at the one that I posted in office hours in our studio, there's a USDZ version of the MakerPipe thing that I'm thinking about. It actually is to scale. So if you have a space that's 15 by 20 and you put it on your iPhone and pop it out, you can walk around my studio and it'll, just with your phone and look up at it, like, does that work? And it's really useful for design. I know it sounds a little over the top, but it's a super useful thing to be able to see at scale through your phone what you're actually, because I can walk to the other side of my desk, look over my desk to see what will be in frame, inside of, when I'm shooting. So it's a interesting process there.
Yeah, that is interesting. I plan on trying that, and that'll be my first attempt at that. So,
if only you had a place to ask questions while you try to figure it out. I mean, that would be the only. You'd have to. Yeah. So feel free if we're getting pretty good. Chris Fritchie and Jesse Schwartz kind of broke the ground on USDZ stuff for us, and now we're doing a lot of it. So definitely ping us for that.
I will.
Yep. Next question is Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What is the next step in rigidity from 3/4 EMT? What adapting considerations are there for the standard connectors?
So we've created a line of larger connectors that you can use with 1-inch EMT, but you have to jump up to that, and they're a little bit more expensive. If you're using the 3/4 inch EMT, I'd first try bracing. Working within the considerations and designing bracing into your design. But the step up that I usually use is black iron pipe and galvanized pipe in 1/2 inch. And that'll fit with the 3/4 inch connectors and be much more rigid.
Have you, I guess, thought of connectors that are more, at an angle where we can really build nice triangles, I guess is the question.
Yeah, triangles are great, right?
Yep.
We've recently released, let me find it here, an adjustable angle connector. So this one is hinged right here.
Right.
And you can create different angles. So that's one thing that you can do. But also, I remind people that the ordinary T connector, because it's on a round tube, you can vary the angle significantly. So if you build that sort of into your design, you can achieve a lot of different angles. And the community is a good place to get ideas for doing that.
Yeah. Next question is from Joe at Alpha Creative in Gainesville. He said, for people with temporary builds at client sites, can you tell us how quickly your process, how quick your process for tabling builds went from Maker Faire went at Maker Faire events?
Boy, I remember going to our first Maker Fairs, and we were like the first ones to get there and the last to leave because we didn't understand, and we were building the whole thing on the fly. In fact, when we flew out to places, we were cutting the pipe on site, which was inexpensive but not really timely. So we got it down to a science, and we left the connectors mostly on the vertical pipes. So if you can imagine you're building a table, you have 4 posts and the connectors are left on there, and then you just loosen them and the whole thing comes apart and you're able to flat pack it. And I think that was really the key to, and labeling, right? That's a good idea to making it quick. And then we were out of Maker Fairs the first once we figured that out. So it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Rupert McRae in Dallas, Texas says, what are your tips and tricks or preferred tools for cutting or bending EMT?
Oh, sure. So on the cutting first, and I get a lot of flack for this opinion, but I really love this simple pipe cutter just because it's approachable, inexpensive. But I heard you guys talking about this in a previous one, and who doesn't want an excuse for buying a new tool, right? So definitely,
we are the community of let's just buy it. Let's can we get an M1 tank for this? How do we do that?
Yeah, I get it. And just like that previous episode on Monday, portable bandsaw is one that I really enjoy. Also, a bandsaw mounted on an arm, so it only has 1 degree of movement, is really good. And then if you have a chop saw or miter saw at home, you can use that as well.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. He said, could you easily purchase EMT outside of the U.S. that would work with MakerPipe connectors?
You could if they have imperial sizing, and there's some select countries that do that.
Next question is from JJ McKenna in Santa Venetia, California. He says, do you have load ratings for the individual connectors? Could you list those for makers to math, quote unquote math?
Sure. Yeah, and this is a question we get a lot. We don't have any specific load ratings. My advice in general is that you test your application as much as you can. We do have some videos that kind of show you generalities of how much weight it can hold. But to just talk about it real quick, for instance, in the strongest direction, like placing a force right here, it'll start slipping at 800 pounds. And it's not a dramatic failure. It just kind of creeps down the pipe. But in its weakest direction, just pulling out, like I explained, 60 pounds, something like that in that force. So those are some general ideas to go with.
And so much of it is structural design. I once built a balsa wood bridge that held hundreds of pounds. So it is less to do with the material and more to do with the design and how much pressure you put on every piece of that design. Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. He said, "Could you see the MakerPipe concept extending to other types of pipe in the future, like pipe that can carry water?" And you've already done that. And a lot of these questions came in earlier, but that you can use the black pipe as it is.
Absolutely.
Next question is from Rupert McRae. He said, "What ways can you recommend to connect Visa mount monitors to a MakerPipe EMT system?"
Okay, great question. And I'm looking for other ideas as well, but the community came up with a simple way to use threaded inserts. And I'm going to show you this. So these are threaded inserts, which have really been handy. And these press into the inside of EMT conduit. And it gives you a 1/4-20 or 3/8-16 mounting point. So using this with a stub piece of conduit to go into a VESA mount is really handy. And we've got some information on a specific method that the community has come up with that I'd be glad to share with anybody that's interested a little bit more.
One of the things that I think, just listening to the conversation there, is look at baby pin and other types of mounts that you might see at Film Tools in LA. They have Visa mounts that have 3/8 taps already in them, designed to screw onto baby pins. And I don't think you could go. We've never used them for more than 24 inches, but you might be able to. Next question is from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, "Can you explain the difference between your standard T connector and the Pro T connector?"
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. Before, I just want to show one thing on the last question. You mentioned baby pins. 5/8 baby pins push into 1/2-inch EMT really well. It's a nice press fit, and that's one of the light mounts that I did there. So that was a great hack.
That's great.
So the differences between the Pro connectors and the 3/4-inch connector, it's obviously sized for a 1-inch EMT pipe, so that's larger. It's thicker steel, so we beefed it up a little bit. And then one of the main differences that was also a community hack, I'd call it, is these holes right here. So we put holes in the connectors, and like I was mentioning before, you can put a self-tapping screw into that hole, and then it really locks it in on the pipe. So those are some of the main differences. And you could do that to the 3/4-inch connectors, but it's already on the Pro.
So, and on the Pro, like for instance, if you wanted to use the 3/4-inch black pipe, you would have a shim that would connect to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let me show you that. And again, these are just off-the-shelf materials that we cut up in-house and provide, as like to make it easier. But you can make this yourself. This is just ordinary PE tubing you'd use for like water irrigation, and that's again the exact fit that you want to adapt black iron pipe. And you can see an example there. There's some 3/4-inch black iron pipe that fits really well.
Because I realized, thinking about my set, the reason I'm thinking about that specifically is I was planning to go to, because I was afraid of clamping onto the EMT with lights and all kinds of other mounts. And I know, because I have black iron pipe over me right now, that I can clamp a lot onto black iron pipe. And so knowing that I can do a fitting, I think I'm probably going to change direction once again. So so anyway, that's good to know. Next question is from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, "Are the threaded pipe inserts removable? If so, what is the technique?"
Yeah, good question. I'd say they're really one-time use only, because you could use them again. Most of the time, I'll just cut them out and remove and discard them. But if you really want to save that threaded insert, cut right. So if the threaded insert is right here, cut a little bit farther, and then take that stub and push it all the way through. But you've essentially bent the spring steel in there, and I don't know how well it'll fit the second time around.
Next question is from Courtney Gooden in Hollywood. Has anyone used heat shrinkable tubing to cover the conduit for different colors and more pleasing appearance to match different decors?
That's a great question. Absolutely. We provide that as part of our system. So we've got, and I'm so excited to hear someone else think that way. But this is some heat shrink tubing that we provide, and it's commonly available as well. It's PVC 1-inch shrink tubing with a UV stabilizer in it. And all you need to do to use this over the pipe is shrink it on with a heat gun, and it gives it a much different feel, much different look. Ends up being a little bit easier than painting, although painting is an option you can do as well. And the only thing you need to do with our connectors is that there's a friction band, which is another piece of that material that we put on the connectors. Just remove that, and then it'll be sized appropriately for the heat shrink tubing over the pipe.
That's great. Next question is from Christian Ortiz in South Florida. He said, "Can 3DZ files be hyperlinked in Discord?" I think it's the 3D. We'll put a link. We're going to put the channel up, and one of the first things we'll do is put a link to the 3D files that are there, and those are in your community forum right now, right?
Correct. Yeah, and they are step files, I believe, right now.
Yep.
But we could export that in any file format. If you have a specific need, just get in contact with me in the Discord.
We'll probably do a little conversion process. So yeah, step, USDZ, OBJ. I think those are probably some of the ones that we're hoping to pull together. Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. He said, you talk about a farm of 10 3D printers. How do you ventilate a space where the printers are located?
Yeah, great question. It's a larger, well, we have a modest shop where we manufacture. It's 3,000 square feet. So, and we have just air circulation in the shop.
That's 3,000 square feet is the whole thing.
We're a small company. I mean, we 3,000 square feet. We use that space to
very
really
efficiently.
Well. But my wife and I, and then a small team, is all there is to MakerPipe.
That's great. Next question is from Rupert McCrae in Dallas, Texas. He said, "What tips and tricks do you have for cable management around a MakerPipe project?"
Oh yeah, great question. Certainly zip ties, but I've really loved using inexpensive Velcro ties. I bought it on Amazon. There were a zillion of these things for, $5 or something, and those really work well for cable management. But I'd have to say that, EMT conduit is made to put wires through.
I was going to say, it's funny to have the wires go on the outside of a pipe that was designed to put the wires on the inside.
I know we joke about it all the time, but yeah, you could put the wires on the inside too.
Next question is from Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota. Are your part profiles cut with a laser or stamped?
They're stamped steel. But there's certain manufacturing processes, so we use a laser as well.
Next question is from Alan Snyder in Cedar Rapids. Do you have anything for the studio and or desk build to stabilize cameras when you have a train go by less than a block away, making vibrations in the house? Not that he has a specific need.
That sounds like an interesting problem to solve. I don't have anything, but I imagine maybe a a rubber hose in the pipe or some sort of isolation vibration isolator. Could be something to look into.
Yeah, it's such a hard vibration, especially large vibration with, low frequencies like that can be super difficult to solve completely. We use a lot of neoprene, layers of neoprene underneath things because that tends to take some of that high frequency vibration, but the big rumbling is the part that we have the most trouble with. Next question is from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, can you explain the use case applications for using friction bands with connectors? Do you know how much added strength they provide, and can the heat shrink tubing stand in for the bands?
Yeah, the heat shrink tubing is the same material and can stand in for the bands. And like I explained, if you're covering the pipe, just take the bands off. The bands add 20% increased grip on the, I'll just throw that out there. But we tested that, it's significant and it helps. So you see them on the connectors. I'll bring up the model again. You see them on the connectors right here, but we also include them in the package, and you can add them to the pipe that's terminating into the connector. So just shrink them on and then assemble the connector, and that adds a little bit of resistance to pulling the EMT out.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. He said, what is the competitive advantage? What competitive advantage do you see in MakerPipe versus 80/20?
Well, you guys were talking about 80/20 so much, and I'm a huge fan of 80/20. I think that it's obviously great, right? And I think, Alex, you hit it on the head. When you build a large structure with 80/20, the lengths of extruded aluminum become very expensive. And I've built lots of stuff out of 80/20. So I think that the inexpensive linear cost of EMT conduit is one of the reasons you might prefer to build with this system. That could be, and I think it's just picking the right tool for the problem you're trying to solve. And then it's flexible. It's easy to prototype with MakerPipe. So I think that's another advantage that you covered as well on an earlier one. But I'd have to say, like, if I was going to build a machine or something where tolerances were really required or rigidity, I'd use 80/20.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 80/20 is great. I do think that the issue with 80/20 is, man, you burn up a lot. If you don't design it well, you can burn up a lot of money really fast. Not that I've ever done that before. So usually we're pretty careful about how we build it. And I think part of the other issue is with 80/20 for us is that there's so many options. And so it's very easy to open up an 80/20 catalog and then just get lost in, I don't know which one I should use, because there's 3 groove and 5 groove, and then there's the 1 inch, and then there's the 3 inch and the 4 inch. And there's so many places that you can go. I've kind of grown to, I want to take someone who knows 80/20 really well and have them design something for me, as opposed to me trying to figure that out. So when I say do a lot of 80/20, I don't do it with that. I don't do it. like I have somebody do it. I tell them what I need. And what I like about MakerPipe is that simplicity of there's only a handful of options and I can figure that out. Next question is from JJ McKenna in San Benicia, California. He said, what additional connector types do you plan of production, such as an articulating or variable angle 1 inch?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We have a number of connectors that are in process that we're doing the tooling. So we have a 135-degree connector that will be released this weekend. That's something, imagine the 90-degree, but 135 gives some more options. We're working on a flange that will build on what the community has come up with already to mount to flat surfaces. We're building out the 1 inch line as well of the Pro connectors, and we'll do all of the same designs in a 1 inch size as well. So the adjustable angle will be a 1 inch EMT available as well. And we're starting to roll those out in January, so not too far away for the 1 inch.
Next question is from Noah Sargent in Fullerton, California. He says, is MakerPipe publicly traded? So you can see how excited everybody is about this.
Yeah. Well, that's no. We're a very small company, but that's nice to think that we're that size.
Yeah, someday. Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. He says, have you ever thought of partnering with independent designers or consultants to provide design services to those with less experience but still wanting to build with MakerPipe?
Oh, that's a great question, and I would welcome that opportunity. We haven't yet, although we have worked with some designers that are designing a new connector or a new accessory or a new kit. So we're open to those opportunities. Just get in touch with me. Love to talk with you more. Next
question is from Roscoe Jones in Brea, California. He said, are the friction bands able to withstand high heat?
They shrink at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and they withstand probably 300 degrees in that range, but they will melt above that.
Next question is from Rupert McCrae in Dallas, Texas. He said, do you supply nylock type nuts, or do you recommend Loctite or thread locker?
We haven't done nylock or thread locker before, and just I've experienced that the connectors stay together, I think, just because of that spring tension on the fastener.
Jeff Dooley in Chicago says, any users trying SDR 80 plastic pipe looking to get away from EMT for weight issues?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with SDR 80. Does anyone know what that is?
I actually don't. I'm assuming it's similar to PVC, but you said that the people are using PVC pipe.
Correct.
And that doesn't need any, if you get 3/4 PVC, it'll just go in, or does it need any kind of adapter?
We use some of the friction bands to just shim it. And we've done a video about those different options. So check that out on the YouTube if you want more, but use friction bands to shim it just a little bit.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about while you were talking about that is one of the ways that, and we did it with the regular PVC, but we would show up at a location and we needed a background for our green screen. Like we just pack the green screen. It's a Lycra green screen. And I realized if we just had the background in the little corners, then we just go to any hardware store and just buy PVC and just attach them. What was interesting was it was really easy for us to find the PVC piping. It was not always easy for us to guarantee that we could find the connectors, the PVC connectors that we would use. And they weren't, it wasn't a great experience working with them. So I think that could be a really interesting puzzle as well. Next question is the last question for the hour is from Dennis Champion Walker. He said, IC 3/4 is 19.05 millimeters. 20 millimeter conduit, which is what we call EMT, is available. I take it this is too big, and you're talking, that's where you might need an adapter.
Right. If I'm understanding correctly, it's a hair smaller than 3/4 inch EMT. And you can use just a couple friction bands to adjust the diameter and fill that gap, and it'll work well.
That's great. David, it's been really a pleasure to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure having these questions. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. It's my pleasure to answer them. And if you have any more, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us, and I'll monitor the Discord if we have a chance.
Now, we're going to try to tempt you to come on Mondays as we design the set, because we're using so much MakerPipe. So come join us. Even if you sit on the panel, you might only answer one or two things, but we'd love to have you on if you feel like it. And we're definitely going to build a channel inside of Office Hours. So inside of our Discord, we'll build a MakerPipe channel. Possibly, I mean, I feel like there's so many of us doing this, it might be a whole section. So if you're okay with that, David, yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
The Chatinator has struck. The channel is already built.
Great. Yeah. So we'll start with a channel, but I have a feeling that there's so many of us doing different things that we may build a section that is just kind of maybe we might make it a builder kind of thing. But you'll come join us, David?
Absolutely. I appreciate the interest and everyone building with MakerPipe. It'd be my pleasure to help any way I can.
Awesome.
And,
All
and I
right.
do want to, if I can, Alex,
Yeah.
is it okay if I give a discount code to the community?
Yeah, we're not going to complain. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got a holiday sale running, but a good discount is save 15 for orders over $250 and save 7 for orders over 100. And I'll extend that for office hour community for a week or so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So for the next week, if we use save 15 over $200, that's great.
250.
Oh, over $250. Yep. Save 15. So that's great. Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for that. And we'll probably order some more. Like I think that I've already realized I got the Pro pack and I was like, I should have gotten the big pack. The big one is, I think Keenan got the big one. And so now and I've already realized as I designed my little studio that I'm going to run out of connectors. So that, by the way, is the other reason to do instances, is because you can tell how many you have.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
We get a lot of last minute orders of, oh, give me 5 more. I've changed my design. Or like, send it to me quick. I got to finish my project. So we're happy to oblige.
Yeah, sounds great. All right. Thank you so much, David. Really, really great having you here. We're excited to see. I think that we're going to build a whole community of MakerPipe folks inside of our community, just because we're the type of people who take this stuff seriously.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to the producers for a great set of questions. Great conversation for the first hour and the second hour. Thank you, as always, to the panelists for doing such a great job in really keeping this conversation moving and contributing back to the community. And now we are going to jump to after hours. A reminder that we've got education tomorrow. We've got the Belfast method at noon. And of course, we're cooking pierogies on Sunday. All right. See you in after hours.